going to show you how to help a chick out if they're not getting out. Here's the supplies that you're going to need. You're going to need a toothpick, you're going to need a clean paper towel, another small paper towel in case some bleeding happens, and you're going to want to wash your hands. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start finding the beak and help with an air hole. So I just peeled back where the chick had already poked through, and I can already see the beak. And so now I'm just going to peel back only the only part I'm going to peel back is the shell itself and this thicker membrane. There's a thinner membrane in there, but I don't want to do anything with that because the chick can bleed. Okay, so I peeled back and there is a little bit of bleeding, so I'm going to take my paper towel and blot. I want to make sure the blood stops bleed. You know, you want it to clot off. Other thing you want to do is you want to make sure you get the nostrils clear of this membrane so it can breathe. And you want to do this fairly quickly. So if you look, there's a thick membrane and then there's a thinner membrane with the veins in it. That's what bleeds. You don't want to pull back on that at all. So now I'm going to try and free up just a little bit there. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with how this one looks now. I've took my toothpick and I just kind of pulled this back a little bit away from the nose. And then now I'm going to put it back in the incubator for 2 hours to let some of that those veins start to absorb. See, here's the thicker membrane. That one's usually safe to pull back a little bit at a time. This inner layer, though, is not safe. Do not pull back on that. Just blot it if you have to, but do not pull back on it because it will bleed and the chicken will die. Okay, I got my chick back in. I did all this in under 2 minutes. I just peeled back the shell right where he poked through. And typically you can't do anything until that happens. Sometimes, if you're really good at it, you can, but I don't recommend poking through the shell until the chick does that part. So there we see that he or she is breathing really well. The nostrils, here, let me point that out for you in case you're new. The nostrils are right here. See where my toothpick is? Those are clear, dry. The bleeding has stopped. This is the only amount of blood that barely, you do not want a whole lot of blood. These baby chicks, if they lose blood, they die. So you don't want that. Just barely, and to prevent that, just barely pull back on this thicker membrane. Sometimes the thick membrane does attach to the thin and can cause a bleed like this did, but this is very minor and I'm really happy with the way this looks. The reason why I did this because my incubator dropped a little low humidity wise and I needed to refill it. I picked up the lid and refilled it, and I was gone a while, so I don't know how long the baby had pipped. I don't like letting my baby sit more than 24 hours in there because I've lost a few doing that, so now I get a little nervous and I do help them if they've been in there too long. So now what I'm going to do is I will wait a couple of hours. By doing that, that'll give these veins time to dry up. And my next time, and I'll record that too, I'll be back in a couple of hours and show you what that looks like. But the next time, all I'm going to do is I'm going to continue peeling back this thicker membrane over here. If I feel comfortable and this looks dried up, I'll go ahead and pull this back a little bit, just a tiny bit at a time, and I'll kind of loosen the head so he can start stretching out of there. Not too much though, because you don't want him to accidentally like push out of there too soon. There's a process. This process takes usually about 6 to 8 hours, depending. But it just depends on how far along they already are. All these eggs in here are probably going to hatch in the next couple of days. This guy's just a little bit early, and I really wanted to show everybody how to do this, because you can save a chicken's life by doing this, or if you don't know what you're doing, you could kill your baby chick, and I don't want any of that to happen. So over the years I have learned how to correctly and safely get my baby chicks out. I have not lost one baby chick this way since I started doing it like this. So this is how you would do it. I'll be back here in a couple hours. Okay, so it's been about 3 hours, and this is what the egg looks like now. It's pretty dry compared to when I was on earlier. So let me show you what you need this time for supplies. This time is going to be a little bit different. You're going to need your paper towel, your toothpick. This time you need pretty saturated paper towel. I'll show you why. And I forgot to tell you guys to get some cornstarch. Cornstarch will stop the bleeding and pressure, but make sure you have that if you have to go through all of this. Okay, so what I've done is I took my wet and I moistened all the membranes, because you want them nice and moist and not sticking to your baby chick. And from here I pulled back some more egg, broke that off, and wet down the membrane. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift very gently some of this thicker membrane, and I'm going to pull back some of this dry membrane here so the chick can start releasing itself a little bit. Not too much, but a tiny bit. Okay, so what I did is I stuck my toothpick right underneath this membrane and just gently pulled it back, just a little bit, just to release some of the pressure on the baby chick and get his head started out, and see how he's coming out of there nicely. Now what you're going to do, again, see how those veins need to be dried up before he comes out of there. So I don't want to pull back the skin too much, the membrane, because he doesn't need to free himself yet. He needs to take time to get out. Give that time to dry up. So I'm going to put this baby back in, and I'm going to wait a couple more hours, and we'll be back. Just to give you an idea, this is how much I removed the first time. And then 3 hours later, I removed this amount the second time. So you see it's just dry shell. This is the thicker membrane here, just a tiny bit of that. But the majority of what I removed is the harder shell. All that is membrane, the thicker membrane, and the rest is shell. And this time, let's see, where's my... So there was no blood loss at all, which is the goal. And I did not pull back or pull off any of the inner, thinner membrane. I left all that there. You don't want to pull on any of that. And so, the point in wetting it down is, if you don't, it can shrink wrap and restrict the breathing. So you want to make sure that is moistened each time you do that. So this baby's doing great. He's not crying. He's doing what he should be. And I will cover this incubator up so he can rest, and then I'll come back in 2 hours and we'll see how he's doing. So we're back, and here we are. It's been a couple more hours, and I'm going to get this baby out and wet him down just a little bit and see how far we can get with this next session. Got all of my supplies, and I'm just going to take my wet towel and just pat him down. If you notice, the veins have now dried up, so this is that innermost membrane. I'm going to start gently moving that back on all sides, and I'm going to remove some of this egg, hard shell. And I'm just going to kind of pull down a little bit on the membrane without breaking anything. I'm trying to do this on camera, but I might have to. I'm going to work on getting some of this thicker membrane pulled back. Okay, so here we go. This is about all the further I want to go. Pretty fresh blood down here, so I'm going to stop at that. And he's pretty free around the edges, but I'm going to go ahead and leave him another couple hours, and then I'll come back. I think the next time we might be able to get him out of here, but for now I got to stop because there's still a lot of fresh blood that needs to dry up. So let me go ahead and pat him dry, and then I'll put him back in, and I'll be right back. Okay, so he is back in, and I try to leave him kind of like on his back with his head up in the upwards position. Here's how much I removed this time. Tiny bit of blood, not bad. Mostly hard shell, a little bit of the thicker membrane, and no inner membrane, because remember, we don't want to remove any of that. We just want to kind of pull it back after we get it all wet. You know, it'll roll back. See how it rolled back here? I just kind of rolled it down. We don't want to pull it off because it's full of veins, and they can bleed to death. Here's where it started to bleed a little bit, but it stopped because I stopped. And then up here, I pulled it back a little bit. So he's doing pretty good. I'm thinking the next time we'll get his head out and let him rest on the cardboard here. And I will not pull him directly out of here because he will be attached to, he's going to be attached. The umbilical cord is still attached to the egg, and it's very, has lots of veins in it. And if that breaks, if you just pull him right out of there and it breaks, he could bleed to death that way too. So this is why if they can pip themselves all the way around and get out, they do it on their own time. They allow themselves to absorb all that blood, and it's a lot easier process. But if you absolutely have to do it this way, then this is how you do it. It takes several hours. I started this, gosh, it was early afternoon. Now it's 9:30 at night, and I'll probably be doing this until midnight, and he probably will not be free overnight until like in the morning, early hours of the morning. So I will be back. So it's almost midnight now, and I'm going to take him out and finish removing some of that shell. Okay, so I went ahead and moistened the membrane and pulled it back and released his head. And now I'm going to just leave him like this. See how I moisten that? You don't want it to stick to his feathers. And now I'm going to just lay him back in like that. Okay, he's back in. I just laid him down so he could rest his head. And I left the egg attached so that whatever's still needing to absorb can. And he'll get out of this egg by himself, or in a couple hours I'll help. But this time all I did was moisten the membrane and pull it back. I did not remove any of that middle, that innermost membrane. And this is the amount of egg that I removed. I actually didn't remove any membrane at all this time, and that's the amount of blood, which is really good. So I'm going to wait a couple more hours and see how he does. Okay, so I went ahead and, since he crawled out, I went ahead and got him out of there. The umbilical cord was pretty much dried up. There's no blood. Here's what the shell looks like. There's blood on that, but on him, nothing. I did take my scissors and I back here there was a little bit of an umbilical cord still attached, and I trimmed that so it wouldn't bleed. And now we're gonna put him on a paper towel and let him fluff out, and then I'll just real quick come back and show you what he looks like at the end. He did well. So here's our baby, all nice and fluffy. And I went ahead and brought him in here to be with all the other little ones, so he could be warm and have company.